Welcome to another episode of Mind Movers, the mental health podcast in dentistry, where today we're speaking with Talitha Mackey, the creative force and successful business owner of Fox and Vamp. I had the pleasure of meeting Talitha on another podcast and was blown away by her story and journey. She is an incredible woman who has been balancing motherhood, mental health, and offers valuable insights and inspiration. So join us as we delve into her story. Welcome, Talitha.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So lovely to have you.
It's so weird to hear Talitha Mackey.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
that is
Is
my
that-
name. It's my married name, but
really?
I never use it.
Oh my God.
But it's nice to hear.
I
My
love-
husband will be delighted.
What's the
Talitha Price.
Talitha
I'm known as
Price.
Talitha Price as everything on print. Even when I send it off, I'm always Talitha Price, and he's like, "Why?"
But you know what? We had this whole debate. We're not going to get into this debate now, but I did a podcast with my really good friend Shivani.
Yeah.
And we did the whole podcast about would you change your surname?
Yeah.
And I think it was a really controversial conversation, and obviously all the like Andrew Tate lovers came for us and were like, these women are going to be single forever and like no one's going to marry them. But I think there was something about the identity of your maiden name with your business, because like,
Yeah.
I'm Dr. Eskander, my dad's Dr. Eskander because
Yeah.
he's a doctor, and I feel like Dr. Rhona Eskander is just like
It just
what I'm
goes.
used to,
It's a
you know,
thing.
and I quite enjoy that. So like
Yeah.
Talitha Price might be like,
It
you
just
know, like,
feels. I can't say. I feel my husband's going to listen to this. It feels better. But equally, my children's surnames are Mackey.
yeah.
So
I love Mackey. Mackey's a very cool
Okay, let's
surname.
roll with it. This is the first of it then.
So, Talitha, I want to ask you about the creation of Fox and Vamp. Okay, so it's always so inspiring to have a businesswoman here. And I want you to tell us a little bit about Fox and Vamp, what it is and how it started.
Yeah. So I have always been really passionate about hair, beauty, makeup since a very young age. I basically dropped out of college before I was thrown out of college and had to go and get a job. And I remember my mum being like, if you don't get a job in 1 week, she was like, you are going back to college. It was the end of the summer at this point. She was like, you are going back to college in September and you're going to be down a year at that point. And I was like, oh my God, frantically trying to find a job. I phoned up every single salon. And at that point, I was too old to be taken on because it's government funded. So you have to be of a certain age to be taken on. I was
Yeah.
already 17. You have to be like 16 when you're doing it. Anyway, I begged this salon. They asked me what my GCSEs were. I actually got really good GCSEs. I just wasn't focused in college. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Anyway, they took a risk on me. So I started doing hairdressing.
How old are you then?
I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah. But I had to complete the course in 2 years, where usually it
fine.
would take 3.5 to 4.
Okay.
So they had to fast track me through the course. So really enjoyed it, but I lived in a really small town and just had really itchy feet. So I actually I didn't speak about this on the other podcast, but I ended up working for Virgin Atlantic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which was amazing. And I did that again, I was actually one of the youngest to ever fly with Virgin Atlantic.
Oh my God, what was that experience
got a letter
like?
off Richard Branson saying I was one of the youngest people to ever
Wow.
be hired. I know.
Were you an air stewardess?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
it like?
Wow, that's so young.
It's
Yeah.
hard work. Yeah, I was young. At the time, it was amazing, but I was literally driving from Southport, where I'm from, which is up north, tiny town.
Liverpool, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
past Liverpool. And I was driving to Heathrow or Gatwick to fly. So I would spend all my money driving just to do the flight, to go away for a few days, which is obviously amazing. And so it just really wasn't kind of sustainable. When I was on board, though, I kind of fell in love with like selling makeup products. And this person, who at the time I didn't know who it was, she handed me a card, and she turned out to be one of the head people in Estee Lauder. She was like a sales manager, and like the highest sales manager in Estee Lauder. And she's like, if you ever want a job, let me know. So I ended up getting in touch with her, moved to London. This is, by the way, I didn't just get in touch with her. This was like maybe a year later. Moved to London. Like I said, I'd always loved makeup, beauty. I loved hair, but I didn't want to go back into it at that point. Fell into working in makeup, started off on a makeup counter. A year and a half later, was an area manager.
Yeah.
Worked for LVMH, worked for Estee Lauder Group, ran Selfridges Beauty Hall in Oxford Street.
Wow.
The whole hall?
Yeah, had 250 staff under me.
Wow.
How old are you then?
21, 22. I was young. Yeah.
Amazing.
I feel like a fast forwarder. I don't feel like I'm speaking, but while I was doing this, I'd had like a really unfortunate hair experience, and I found myself needing hair extensions. And listen, I'm a northern gal. Having hair extensions is very normal.
Yeah.
I've always pretty much had hair extensions. But anyway, my hair had been really compromised. So I just couldn't find anywhere good in London to get them. And I was traveling back up north to Liverpool to get them. I was literally hopping on a flight to Marbella to get my hair done where my mum was living, to go to the person she was using, who was amazing. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I literally did this for a year. Then I was like, why isn't there somewhere in London where you can go with really high quality hair extensions that's affordable? Of course there are places, there's a handful of places, but it was either unattainable to me at the time because it was too expensive, or you'd have to compromise on quality. And I was like, there's a real gap in the market here. There should be good hair available at a better price. So really that's kind of how the business was formed. I trained on my days off to do hair extensions. Obviously somewhere back in my mind, I did have the skill set technically of being a hairdresser. So it's not like you can just pick it up where you left off. Obviously I had to train, retrain, and really that's how the brand was started, and that's how it began. I left my corporate role. I just started doing it out of my flat. My husband, who's my boyfriend at the time, said to me, if it doesn't work out, you'll have to get a job. I'll give you 3 months. And I was like, yeah, fine, I'll get a job. I'm a hustler. I'll get a job. That's fine. And it did work out. So
I love
we
that.
are.
So I think, one of the fascinating things is that people, I mean, actually, I'm going to put it out there to both of you. Do you think that some people are just born with entrepreneurial spirit and some people aren't? Or do you think it's something that you can get into, as it were, because what I'm hearing, Talitha was kicked out of school, clearly conventional school, didn't, left school, was almost kicked out. She didn't want to pursue that role, but still became incredibly successful and had that drive from a young age. Do you think entrepreneurial spirit is something that you're born with, or do you think that you do?
Yeah, I honestly have always, my mum was like, I remember I had a fascination with like designer handbags when I was young. And my mum was like, well, they're so expensive. And I was like, well, I'll get a job. I was 14 or 15 at the time. I had 3 jobs at 15. I would literally work in a designer clothes shop of a day. I would go to work in a restaurant of a night, and then I would go glass collect in a nightclub. I was 15 and I bought my handbag after 2 months. I saved up myself. So it's just in me, I think. I am not afraid of hard work, any work. I'll do any of the work. I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
Yeah, but the question is interesting in so much as, look, you were very successful at what you were doing. You were running the floor, 250 people working. You're obviously very good at sales, it's clear. But entrepreneurial spirit, there's an element of risk that some people really shy away from.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
and there's a loneliness to it as well that some people can't handle and some people are fine with.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a loneliness to it. Because
there is like these communities now, because we went to this parlor event a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And at this parlor event, there were loads of like startup brands, and they said that like founder loneliness is like a really big thing. Like if you're a sole founder,
100%.
It's much lonelier than people having co-founders. And there's some people that fail at their first startup and it's only them. They actually prefer, they're like quite traumatized at the loneliness aspect of it on every level.
We've all started a business.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that if you tell friends and family, I've got this idea, yours was a hair salon, was it?
Yeah, well,
Hair extension.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or you were going to do what you did. I remember you pitching it at me, telling me, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
A lot of people will tell you it's a bad idea.
Honestly, I will never forget my auntie. I love her dearly, but she looked at me in pity. Like, she looked at me like she was going to burst into tears when she was like, you're leaving this corporate role, you're doing
and some people will live their own fear out in you.
Project.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting that if loads of people tell you it's a good idea, it's not a good idea.
So true.
Yeah, because the reason is, if it's such an obviously good idea,
then
there'll be many competitors, there'll be loads of people doing it. If everyone's telling you it's not a good idea, it may not be, but it may be.
Yeah.
Right? And it's that when you say, does someone have entrepreneurial spirit in them? It's that question. When people are telling you it's not going to work, and yet you still have this voice in your head saying...
But I want to ask you, Talitha, was your background, did you grow up in a privileged background or a like normal background, a working class background? What was your background?
working class, I would say. I did go to private school, but my mum like struggled to put us through private school. My dad wasn't very present. So yeah, I was
But did
always
that drive you?
I think so. I've done some therapy, and actually I was literally just thinking that, and I think that I've done inner child work and all sorts, and I think that actually she came to the conclusion of, you are the way you are and you're so determined because no one else was going to look after. It was up to you. You felt very determined to be able to look after your mum. And I would have never come to that conclusion on my own. It's just how I am. You know, I'm happy to work and I'm happy, but potentially that is
because I mean, look, obviously Payman made some really good points, because we talk about like being a nepo baby and all that stuff. He says sometimes when you come from a very privileged or very rich background, it's sometimes even harder to prove yourself because people just assume you are where you are because of who your parents are, or like, and sometimes that's more difficult. I think definitely when I think about my own childhood, when we first came back to the UK after my dad had left, like we did not have any money. And I remember my dad taking us to Asda, and I wasn't allowed to buy like normal Coke. We had to buy Asda's like best or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents, like your mum, my mum was like, we have to put them in private school because the schools were so rough and education was always like the highest pillar in life.
Yeah.
So like, again, my mum was like working 2 jobs.
Same.
My dad was paid really badly on the NHS at that time.
Yeah.
And every single penny went to school. Like we didn't take holidays. We didn't go out for meals. It just went on schools. And then going to the school, because we couldn't afford school uniform and had to buy it from the charity, I was bullied because mine had holes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was always popular because I was always a sociable person, but the children's parents didn't want their kids to hang out with me because my parents were never present. So they thought I'd be a bad influence because they never picked me up or would never come to any of these clubs and we couldn't afford it. But it was that, as young as like 6 years old, I was like, I'm going to prove all these parents wrong,
100%.
like on a subconscious level, because I was so protective of the way that they thought so negatively of my parents. And I recognized the power of having like financial freedom was.
Yeah.
So I think that drove me to a
sure.
certain extent.
And that's amazing to think what you've achieved now.
Oh, no, thank you. But I honestly, I think what you've achieved is amazing. And back to Payman's point though, you say like if someone says the idea is really good, then it's almost like it should deter you. But I'm going to put something out there. Hair is something that's been around for a really long time, and hair businesses haven't thrived in the way that it's thrived with you. So why do you think, like, what do you think has made Fox and Vamp the success? And tell us about like what happened during the pandemic as well, because I know that's when you had the launch.
Yeah, of course. So we actually opened the Chelsea salon in 2019 December. Obviously we were shut in March of 2020, so that was a really obviously difficult time. I just opened the business up for it to just be closed, and obviously it was such a risk at the time. And I remember like when I was given the rent at the time, like working it out per client, how many clients I'd have to do.
Were you by yourself or did you have a co-founder?
No, just by myself. So took this on by myself, and I'd taken only 1 employee on at that point.
And had you saved up loads of money and put it all in?
Yeah.
How did you fund it?
It was just so lucky. I know we're detouring now, but it is actually an interesting story. And actually, I love this story because it just shows about being a good person. So when I was renting a space in Wandsworth Town, I had a client, super nice client. However, when you're just starting off, and you have appointments, you'll know yourself, and someone lets you down, it's quite a big deal.
Oh,
you take
huge deal.
Huge. You take it so personal because that appointment's everything to you.
Yeah.
And she had actually done it to me a few times, maybe like 2 or 3. So obviously you feel really defeated. Anyway, she'd messaged me. She wanted to come in. I was like, I'm gonna, welcome her in. And I was just super, super nice to her, as I would always be, and we were just chatting, but I was a bit deflated in this appointment. And she said, you just don't see me like yourself. I said, well, I've started looking for premises. So expensive. I was like, I can't believe it. Like, I just feel like I'm never going to be able to get a salon. Like, how on earth do people take it on? They need X, Y, and Z. And anyway, she was quiet and she was like, this is really strange, but my next door neighbour has a salon in a house and the people are moving out to Notting Hill because they've expanded. She was like, she's actually changing it back into part of the house, but do you want me to speak to her? And I was like, yes. We showed me pictures, showed me the images. It's amazing. So I met with her that night, signed for it the next day.
Amazing.
Yeah. So there was no like big, and obviously because it's technically residential, it was done in a very different way. And I think actually now, like, I would never want a salon that was different to what the
Really?
salon is now, because it's within a townhouse. It's stunning. It makes it really special and
Are you still
intimate.
in the same place?
We're still in the same place. It's on Sydney Street in Chelsea, so just around the corner from
Yeah.
yourself. It's a beautiful space, and I think coming back to your original question of what makes it, you know, what makes it, I don't want to say thrive, but what makes it different is really the experience. I worked really hard building relationships with clients, and anybody that I've brought into the business, I've waited, even if it's meant that I've taken more on myself or it's been super stressful. I'll only bring on people who really align with my values, just so that we can keep the business at a certain level. We try to keep ahead of the curve in terms of any different methods. I'm not like set in my ways that it has to be done this way. I'll very much pivot, exactly what we were mentioning before the podcast before. I'll pivot when needed. And I just think it's about really being honest, having integrity. We know we're lucky that same as you, we work with a lot of influencers, but we don't hunt down the influencers. We never ever get in touch with influencers.
Yeah, same.
These are people coming to us because they want the service, and that, that's because we're providing a good service, which I think again says a lot. Yeah.
So during lockdown then,
Yes,
what happened?
Sorry. We obviously could not open. I mean, like,
Did you panic?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely panicked. Panicked, was worried about money, had to continue to pay the rent because I'd just taken it on. I was so scared of losing it. So I had to pay the rent fully for around 9 months, I think. And then I was just like, I just can't do this. And then we negotiated to bring it down to half. I didn't have any help, any government help, because it was classed as residential.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so that was really hard.
Did you have a lot of staff by that point?
No, so I didn't have too many staff, and the staff that I did have were self-employed, so that was probably better.
Yeah.
But then equally, you worry that you're not going to have those staff back. You feel guilty because you're not able to look after them, even though you want to. I wasn't in a position where I could. So yeah, there was a lot of panic. There was a lot of, obviously, crappy days, like, of course, for everyone. And the only thing I would say, though, looking back on COVID, is my business really thrived after COVID.
Yeah. How long were you guys allowed open for? Because that's same with dentists. Like 3 months after the announcement, we were allowed to go back. So we were allowed to go back much earlier.
Yes.
I also had just bought the clinic and I suddenly had all this staff and everything.
Yeah.
But I switched to doing like online consults and I pivoted and I was just quite... I really did my best to try and
the same
do.
as us. I completely forgot that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would literally have to put my face on, like, obviously, like in my pajamas, and exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'd be doing online consultations, getting everyone booked up. We had wait list upon wait list.
Same, yeah.
We would go in at 6 a.m. We wouldn't leave till 11 at night. Like, we were just round the clock, and it was actually such a weird, great momentum. Everyone was just so happy to see us, so happy to be there. Throwing money at you, let's be honest, because people had it.
People had money in their
People
pockets.
had money. Yeah.
They were so happy to spend it. So I always think, I don't know if my business would be the same, actually, because actually, I tried to look out the positive from it. So off the back of it, we did well.
There's a massive similarity between dentistry and
Hairdressing. Yeah, do you know that?
Massive.
No, but also a lot of our dentists are self-employed.
Well, let's start with dentists used to be hairdressers. The very early dentists.
Know that.
Before university started teaching dentistry, before it was just
like what century are we talking about?
It was the hairdressers that were doing the teeth.
No way.
Like 100 years ago, right?
Not 100, more than 100 years ago.
150. Not that many.
My goodness.
Drills and electricity.
Do we have the same skill set?
But then the
I'm going to...
the businesses are very similar in that if someone doesn't turn up, you've lost money.
Yeah, it's client facing,
You've got
it's intimate.
The owner, and we call them associates, but you would call them
clients.
Well, no, the other people.
Oh, sorry,
Other hairdressers who work for you.
Yes, of course, the stylists.
The stylists, they're on a percentage of what they bring.
Yeah,
it's very similar.
Yeah.
So what I'm interested in is, as a new business.
Medieval Europe. I'm just putting it out there. Medieval Europe. 1745. This is not 100 years ago.
150.
But it did happen.
But then, as a new business.
Yes.
And let's face it, Sydney Street. That's not a cheap place to rent, right? Where you've got I know you had a few clients from your Wandsworth days, but where you've got essentially empty seats, what did you do marketing wise to get patients in? To get clients in?
Yeah, no, well, but it's interesting. Listen, there's always going to be ups and downs. Sometimes we're super busy. Sometimes, obviously, it's quieter. I don't really sweat the quiet times now because I understand the business enough to know that we will go through the motions. At the time, of course, I sweated it more. What I would do is we're very present on social media. I think that it's really easy to show the results. They're instant. So it's very easy to show. Very visual. So I think having our clients are a really good asset, and they're obviously willing to be on the Instagram. We've always utilized that really well. We do quite a lot of Q&As that we get so many consultations on the back of. And honestly, word of mouth. I've never really worked with marketing at all or PR. And yeah, I've just literally relied on word of mouth, relied on doing a good job, and of course,
were you very strong on social media before you even started?
No, literally, absolutely shocking. And I also
did you start when? What year?
2019.
So yeah, so
the beginning of 2019.
So you didn't have hundreds of thousands of followers.
No, still don't, sadly. But
you've got a really decent following.
Yeah, no, we have a nice following, and we have an engaged following as well. But I've worked with different influencers. I mentioned it on the other podcast that
Sophie Milner's one of them.
Sophie Milner's one of them. Laura Wills, Fashion Bug Blog. I speak about her on every podcast because she really was a pivotal moment.
She's my Melissa's wardrobe. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, she is. She was a pivotal moment within the business. She is somebody that doesn't look like your typical extension client. And I think there's obviously, people's thoughts behind extensions aren't necessarily true. Like maybe mine doesn't look like extensions, but it is. It's full head of extensions, and that's maybe not where their head goes. And Laura Wills is a very Chelsea mom, very natural looking, and her style is incredible. And I think she really drove the women in the area into the salon. And I always say to her, I actually always say, I don't think I'd have been able to keep the salon if it wasn't for you initially. But she's still a client today. And I think that says so much. Like, she's been with me from the beginning, and she's like, she actually always says, I can never take my hair out. It's my superpower.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's amazing. The fact that she's still coming speaks volumes, and we don't always post it. We don't, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's the same with Melissa.
She's a paying client now. Like, I would never take it, but she insists, and like, she's just loves her hair. And yeah, I think that really helped.
Your hair is like, so
your hair
you're like, I know you can't relate, but like my hair, my hair is something like I'm lucky because I've always had, Middle Eastern hair essentially, but last year I was going through quite a lot and I lost a lot of hair, and then I went to a trichologist and a doctor, and they basically were like, look, you've got signs of androgenic alopecia because of all the stress. And I just felt like I wasn't myself. So people 100%. Underestimate, and hair is one of those things that it does reflect your state of mind. Yeah, 100%. So I think, that's really, really important. Influencer marketing is always something that I talk about, and the power of that, and if you've got the right influencers. And I think the formula that people get wrong, I see it in dentistry as well, is that people bombard a load of influencers and they expect stuff, or they start putting these KPIs on them. I'm like, it doesn't work like that, because they're also human beings, and you've got to understand that when they want to post something, it is their job. And they want to be like credible and authentic, because that's the whole reason. Your audience aren't going to believe you if you're paying to promote a service, essentially.
100%. And listen, it doesn't, I think you'll agree, it doesn't really have the same hit these days.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's great if you get a great influencer that really makes a difference, but I don't see it impacting the business, maybe because we've grown, or maybe because people just don't buy into it as much. But I think working with really well-aligned influencers is the right thing to do. Somebody asked me the other day, would you stop working with them? And I was like, no, I think it's actually more brand damaging for them to go somewhere else, and get their hair done. I'm happy to have them, the right people in the salon. But like I say, we don't really reach out. Of course, there's like people on my wish list that
you can manifest it.
We can manifest,
So you then turned it from a service business to a product business.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a big step, right?
It was a big step, yeah. It's still...
What made you do that?
Because
But also for those that don't know, so yeah, Talitha now sells
Go
hair
through that.
extensions. Go through
of
that.
course. So we have a product line now. So we sell the hair. So we sell it in clip-ins, we sell it in tape-in method, and we sell it in the keratin bonds. I'm also wholesaling the methods as well, so we can wholesale into other salons. We're actually starting in Dubai at the moment. And the reason it was created is purely because every supplier I was working with just wasn't quite right. So I started looking for the hair literally in 2019. I have only just got the hair, by the way, to the point where it's ready to wholesale. It's taken years. It's taken thousands of pounds. It's taken lots of breakdowns, loads of tears, loads of giving up, don't want to do it, absolutely hate it, to get to this point now. And I still feel like we've got a long way to go, but the product side I'm really excited about, because obviously that's how you can start to scale your business. And again, I'm just always, it was never going to be, I will never stand still. I just think that's the way I am. It's probably my best quality in business, my worst quality in home life, because nothing is ever quite enough. Like, I'm always looking for the next thing. But yeah, that's basically.
So it's hair that you sell?
So sorry, yes, it's hair that we sell. We have hairbrushes as well. We have scrunchies, the accessory side, and we are launching 3 products next year as well.
Why did you decide to transition into that space? What motivated you to transition?
Just because it made sense. Yeah, and also it made sense. I couldn't get it off a supplier, so I had to create it ourselves. So we created the different hairlines ourselves. Like the hair, I know I'm talking about hair extensions, not everybody gets it, but in every shade of hair extensions, there's like 6 different colors going through. That's what makes it look super natural. Whereas like if it's not as dimensional, it doesn't look as natural. And obviously our whole thing is that it looks really, really natural in your hair. And also I actually had a fallout with one of the suppliers.
Wow.
And I spoke about this, and she actually, we were spending a lot of money with her, and she dropped me due to somebody coming to work for me that used to work for her. And that was probably the best thing that happened. I feel like it was the universe. Obviously at the time it left me in a really difficult
state,
difficult situation, because our main hair supplier cut us off. But it really forced me into taking the leap that I needed into putting the money down. It's expensive to create your own hairline, right? You can't just order hair by the pack. You have to order in the kilograms of hair.
And are you selling direct to consumers as well as to salons?
So we sell online as well. So but just for clip-ins and tapes. So these are things that they can take to the hairdresser or do themselves at home. Because I'm aware that not everyone can get to Chelsea, right? Not everyone can come to Chelsea.
It's a totally different skill, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are you doing to address that? So you're now getting good at e-com and...
Yeah. Or did you get a team?
I got a team to do the website. I am really trying my hardest to get my head around it. But I enjoy Shopify because Shopify is pretty easy, right? And if you've used it, it's pretty basic. So I can wrap my head around that. I'm still terrible on e-commerce and all these kind of things. I need to get better.
Yeah.
But it's a different side of the business. And again, it's all pretty new. The products have only just launched within the past 2.5 months. So it's all
right at the beginning.
We've had the products to sell directly to our clients in salon for over a year, but I didn't want to take them online until we knew that
one
everything was
big
perfect.
difference between products and services is that services can be profitable immediately. Products, very rare that they're profitable in the first.
He used to be a dentist. He gave up dentistry, and what whitening system? Well, what whitening?
I would love to use your whitening. I don't use any. I haven't whitened my teeth in about 2 years.
Enlighten is the one. So Payman owns Enlighten.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But my point is, that with products, if you're not profitable for 3-4 years,
really,
that's normal.
Well, I always
with
had
services, it's very unlikely, and for services, you tend to be profitable in the first year.
Yeah, I had this image, because I'm obviously very naive in this world, that I would launch them online and ding dong, here we go.
Yeah. So did we.
And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why are they just sat online? Like, we've done a few posts. What's happening here? And then we just start to get some traction. Actually, the last week was brilliant. We've just got loads of traction from America, and I just don't know why. Nothing was said, nothing was done that I can see on social. And yeah, most of our clients that are buying online are literally 70% is from the US.
How crazy.
Really, really interesting.
Talitha, I want to ask you though, what is your home life situation?
Yes.
Because this is one of the most important things for me to understand. Like, obviously, I see a strong, empowered boss woman here in front of me. And, you know, you, from what I understand, were working day and night. So when you first met your partner, was that challenging on the relationship? Was it also difficult for you to like ease into a space where you know, are trusting somebody, are giving to a relationship? You know, how did you navigate through that?
So when I met my partner, I was still working in Selfridges. So it was a different kind of job. I'm lucky that he's really supportive. He's obviously now my husband. And he also works hard, right? He's not always, he's busy as well, which helps. When I left to start up the business, I think the biggest thing rather than me being so busy day and night, the biggest thing that he had the problem of is probably just the constant meltdowns that you had to support me through. And like, am I making the right decision? What am I doing? And I think, you know, he has definitely, I've never said this to him. Oh my God. So when he listens to this podcast, I'm sure he listens to this podcast. Like I probably couldn't have done it without him. Like he was such a support. No, but I think it's really important that you have some kind of support. You have that rock. And he was just a stable person that I could just have those meltdowns to constantly, bat ideas off.
Before that, did you find that you weren't having those sorts of interactions and relationships?
For sure.
Yeah.
And also, just a completely different relationship. I can't.
That's why you married him,
together,
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're married. Also, like, I know it sounds weird, but I also can't really remember not being with him. We've been together almost 10 years.
Yeah, wow.
We've been together almost a decade. It's been quite a while. Obviously, been with a few shockers before him.
We'll have to go through them.
We all have to, And I can't imagine being with them when I tried to set up my business. I probably maybe wouldn't have even tried to set up my business because maybe they were putting me in a place where I wouldn't have felt confident to, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas he's always treated me so well, always believed in me. And I think that's a really important thing. My mum as well. My mum's such a solid and she's amazing. And I always say when I don't have a relationship with my dad, and I always said, I'm sure, obviously, I am affected by it, but I never feel like I am because she's such a solid. Like she feels like both. I don't feel like I'm missing anything.
I hear you.
What about the juggle with kids?
Yes.
Well, we're going to get onto that. So the relationship was solid from the start.
Yeah.
You felt that he could support your visions and your dreams, which is great. And the breakdowns can totally relate to that sort of relationship. But how did you ease into motherhood? Let's talk about that, because I feel like people don't really talk about that side of things.
I think I got pregnant with my first son, Jagger. He's 3 now. So we got pregnant with him in lockdown. So
Lockdown babies.
Baby.
Everyone loved having a baby in lockdown.
Which I now look back on again, and I know obviously so many people had a terrible time, so I obviously want to be careful what I say. But for me, with the lockdown, because obviously I had Jagger and it was a time that I was at home, everyone was kind of at home, it was actually probably the perfect time to have him. I know that I don't want to speak out of turn, but it was perfect for us because I didn't have the pressure of work. Of course I had the pressure of not being open, but I didn't have the pressure of work, which I just had with my daughter.
So it was almost like your maternity leave.
Basically, exactly. And actually, so we reopened. Jagger was born in January. We reopened in the April 21. Yeah, must have been. Right, so we fully reopened in April 21, and I was back then. So I'd had January, February, March. I'd had like that time off with him where I didn't have to feel guilty. For me, it's a guilt thing, right? I didn't have to feel guilty about not being in the business or not being present in the business. I could just enjoy my baby. Whereas it was a very different scenario with my daughter now, Sloane, who's 8 months old. We were literally doing photo shoots when I was 9 months for the products.
Wow.
We were like staffed down. I was interviewing like a maniac, like out here about to pop, afraid my water was going to break at any point. We were in negotiations with Dubai about all sorts. Things like deals were dropping. It was a very stressful time. And we're in the process of creating some products that we have to constantly be speaking to different factories about. And I remember being on a Zoom call 2 days after Sloane was born. And I was late to the Zoom and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I've just had a baby. And they were like, okay, but you know, we need an answer. And I was like, wow, Yeah, they didn't care. Like
We talk about this sort of stuff all the time, though, that like we had a female dentist as well that was freaking out because they wanted to do, I think, cesarean, and she said, I have to be back at work like in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's not an option. And even the way like dental chairs are like designed and things like this, like, you know, there is still, I think, so much to understand about what women needs, you know, during this time. So it's really difficult.
It's really, listen, I struggle with with 2 children for sure. I find it really hard. Also, Sloane is at an age where technically it would be very normal for me not to be working at this point. She's 8 months old. People do take years off. I mean, I couldn't, you know, of course they take a year off and they're perfectly entitled to do so. But I've barely had any time off since she's been born. And then the guilt of not being with her is bad. But the guilt when I'm with my business, that I need to be with the business. I have to focus on the business. I have the guilt of not being with the children. When I'm with the children, I have the guilt about what's going on in the business. And I feel that all the time. It's really real juggle. What gives?
Yeah.
The relationship, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be the kid or the business.
The only thing I have to think, well, honestly, at times, sometimes I think, is it worth it? But, you know, it is, my first baby was my business.
Yeah.
I believe in it. I believe in what I'm trying to create here. And that's ultimately what will keep me going.
Yeah.
And I also just try and be really present with the kids when I am with them.
When you are with them, yeah. It's so important.
Really important. I put my phone away.
Good.
And literally I'll do that and I'll put it on the other side of the room because I'm too distracted. My phone doesn't stop. You'll know yourself. Your phone doesn't stop, right? And there's always something. There is always something. So I'll just put it away. So when I'm with them, I'm with them. And also I, of course, have help. She's 8 months old, right? But I spend at least an hour and a half with her in the morning and then start my day. So I've spent that with her, drop him off at nursery, and then on to work I go. And it's not for everyone. Definitely not for everyone. It's hard. But also I feel like society kind of puts you in a box sometimes of like, you're this mum and you're this amazing mum that's at home with your children. You want to be this, you know, you're just with your children. You're the best mum ever because you're always present. Or you're working, right? You're one or the other. And it's like, actually you can be both. Like, I really enjoy my children. I enjoy motherhood, but I also really like to work and like to do other things.
I think one of the scariest things that's happening online particularly is that we're having extremist views. Like, things have become so polarizing. Recently I posted about that NFL player, Hunter. Did you see that whole controversy? So he's this NFL player and he went to a school graduation, a female school graduation, and he was like, I want to congratulate you on your like whatever. And he's like, one of the biggest lies that you've ever been told is that like motherhood is actually the most important thing that you'll ever do, pretty much. Okay. And that's the kind of the long, he's super Christian, so like there was definitely this sense of him, you know, like talking about Christianity and that rhetoric. However, obviously it riled up a lot of women because essentially...
What was his point?
His point was basically like motherhood and having kids is way more important, and the biggest lie that you're ever told is that like education and being successful is more important.
I see.
Oh, so he was actually sticking up for mum.
Yes, right, correct. Right. And I just feel like, again, we're having this polarized, and it was really interesting because I was like, what do you guys think? I talked about it on my social media. And a couple of dentists actually had also said to me, like, I think that he's really valid. Me and my partner have talked about it. And I actually think that, you know, you can't do it all. Like, someone has to be the caretaker of the children and someone has to be the provider. Now, like, that's fine. I understand. And a lot of women in the comments obviously were riled up. They were like, what? So you expect me not to have an education and like wait for a prince to just turn up on my door? And then I obviously made the point that was, you know, imagine if you are in an abusive relationship and you don't have any qualifications, education, you can't get out of the situation because you've not got this. Anyways, my point is that, again, like everything on social media, everything has become so polarized. Yeah. It's either you're the perfect mum and you're at home, or you're the boss woman. And it's like there's these like polarized categories.
Put social media to one side. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Starting and running and making a business successful is a massive sacrifice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever you are.
Yeah.
You could be a mum. As a mum, it's even harder because you've got that massive guilt thing. But let's say you're not a mum. Let's say you're not even a dad. Let's say you're just a single guy. Yeah, you will not see your family as much as you thought. You're going to miss birthdays. You know, it's that kind of. It's like being in the army or something. Yeah? It has its upside, but it has its downside. Yeah, and we gotta just be open with that. Yeah, that your kids will miss out on you a little bit. They will.
It's got to give, though.
But they will also learn.
Life.
They'll learn. Yeah. If I watch my mum create an empire, like if you open one of these salons in every capital city or something, well, I've learned massive things just by being around you.
This is what my husband says to me.
Yeah.
He literally says the same. He's like, one day they're going to look at you and be like, wow, look at what my mum's done. So let's hope.
How did was your mum working when you were growing up?
She was working, but she's not entrepreneurial. Like, that's not even a mean thing. She isn't, you know.
She just worked hard.
She worked hard to put us through education. So yeah, really different. The one thing I will say as well about having kids is obviously I started my business pre-kids. So probably took a lot more risks because there was a lot less to risk. There was a lot less risk to have. Whereas now things obviously, you know, I have to try and make things work and make sensible decisions because we have a family.
I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, right? Like, you know, you hear people, and often I go back to the deathbed situation, and, you know, they did a nurse talked about how people have their deathbed regrets about their life. And I think one of the most difficult thing is, like, if you're somebody, for example, that worked in finance or a corporate job, and then you ever wanted to try something, but you've got family to look after, like, it's so difficult, like, to kind of be like, right, I'm sacking off my 100k salary to try something and I have no idea if it's going to work. It's a really difficult thing, and I think the younger you take the risks, almost the better, dare I say.
Yeah, for sure. No, you are right. And I think that it takes balls, right, to be able to do that, whoever you are, whatever age you are. But if it pays off, it pays off. And I just think there's nothing better than something working out when you've put the work into it. Honestly, anything that's been successful in my life, and I know that we've worked so hard for, it's so much more enjoyable. Like, it's back to your point as well. If you were given something, you're never going to look at it the same, are you?
Until you've earned it.
Yeah.
I do think pain is necessary sometimes, and discomfort is the thing that really gets you into growth. You know,
100%.
Someone once said to me, a comfortable or okay situation is much worse than a really difficult situation, because if it's easy for you to just be in that situation where it's just okay, it's not awful, it's not amazing, you're going to stick at it. Whereas if you have something that causes you incredible pain, it forces you to grow.
Exactly.
And I think it is really important, you know, in some way. I don't wish pain upon my life, but now I understand that it's a part of the necessary journey to get me to where I need to be, regardless of those.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, speaking of which, though, what was your lowest point in the last 10 years? That you felt that you were struggling?
I think when I moved to London, I was doing the corporate role. I felt very like I was on a hamster wheel. I felt like I was, you know, I had all these teams. I was under immense pressure. I mean, I'm under pressure now, but the pressure there it's intensified. They call Selfridges the beast anyway. Like, it's a known thing. You're working really long hours and you're under incredible pressure for, let's face it, not much money. And I was head to toe in psoriasis at the time.
Wow.
Literally.
From stress?
From stress. I still suffer with it now, but very, like, I manage it. I just felt like I had no social life because I was just always exhausted, but I was this young girl trying to work all the time. When I went out, I was meeting the wrong people. Drinking too much when I went out, probably because I was just trying to mask the fact that I just wasn't happy. But equally, I'd moved to London. I'd left a relationship that nobody could understand why I left.
Back up north.
Back up north. I was with the guy for a long time. His family were very successful. He was very successful. He'd have married me. If I'd have done that, I would have had a very nice life. Till to this day, I would have had a very nice life. It just wasn't enough. And I just knew I had this point to prove. I couldn't go home. And I was just really unhappy and felt really lonely. I moved to London with one of my closest friends, and she met somebody and got pregnant within 6 months. So then I had
It's
to
happening
live
to a
with
lot of my friends now.
Really? And
Yeah.
then I always had to live with somebody that I didn't know. So again, I was just lonely. And then I actually, like we said about the therapist, I started speaking to this therapist and did a lot of inner child work. Then within 6 months, I met my husband.
Oh, wow.
But I think you have to do that work first.
Yeah. So do you feel because you had those pain points quite early on that now when you have challenges, it rarely affects your mental health, if that makes sense, because you understand
The triggers.
Yeah, so you can, like, even if you've got something at work that triggers you or something with your kids, like you understand how to manage it now because so many years ago you had understood all those different things.
Listen, I'll still go through times. Like I said, I have found it after having Sloan, like not so much with my son, but after my daughter, I even found social media really intense, like being on there, because I always say, one of my favorite sayings is comparison is the thief of joy, but you can't help it, especially like when you feel like you almost have an out of body experience when you have a child. You don't really recognize yourself because you don't look like yourself. It looks on social media like everybody is doing so incredibly well.
Yeah.
Yet you feel like you're not. Listen, if any people looked at my social media, it looks like I've had this amazing baby, you know, she's beautiful, I'm running a business. No one knows what's going on behind social media, but...
Is there loss of identity in becoming a mother? Must be, right? There must be an element of that.
Yeah. I would say that I did struggle with, like I said, with the social side of things and the comparison side of things, but equally, I do always try and bring myself back to, one, I'm very lucky to have healthy children and amazing children. And yeah, the identity thing, I would just say that you become a little bit more, for me personally, I'm not saying you have to be a mother to be empathetic at all, but like for me, I just found myself being a lot more empathetic, a lot more patient, because you have to be with children, which I had zero patience before. I mean, my patience isn't great now, but it's better.
I think I agree with you. It makes you a better person. But
I think it's unfair to say.
With pain.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to say because, listen, not everyone's going to have kids. It doesn't make you a bad person, but it makes you, for me, it's taught me those things. I'm more empathetic. And also, I don't sweat the small stuff as much.
Because of the children.
Yeah, I think so.
I think, you know, at the end of the day, everybody's experiences are different. And like you said, some people may choose, may not choose. I think the nuanced way of thinking is so important in the world that we live in today. And I think it's recognizing that mothers will have struggles. And if you do want to be a stay-at-home mum, you be a stay-at-home mum.
Great.
If you want to be a boss girl that doesn't want to have children, that's your choice too. If you want to do a bit of both, which I'm hearing that you do, and I'd like to do eventually, that's cool too.
Exactly.
I think what we've got to recognize is that it's not one fits all.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, women are biologically programmed to have children, as it were, but not all women can have children either.
Exactly.
You know, whether or not they've been gifted that. So I think it's really, really important. And the social media thing, I think the whole like sort of mummy influencers or all of the stuff around motherhood, I think it's difficult. Even me, who's not a mother yet, I look at that stuff and like you say, I'm like, how are they doing it all? And there's so much on there that I think can be quite overwhelming if people don't show the real behind the scenes, because there are behind the scenes of everything.
Of course. It's a struggle. It is a struggle for most mums. Of course, people just take to it, but I'm a really good mum. I am. I can say that because I am. But I struggle, of course. And sometimes, you know, like when everything's going on with the business, one of the kids is sick and, you know, you're torn and it is just constant, but you've just got to ride that wave. They're not always going to be this little.
Yeah.
So I just have to try and enjoy it, do the best I can. And that's all I can do, really.
So tell me a little bit about the Princess Trust and your involvement with them.
So we recently did an event with them, which was amazing, with my client, now friend, Stacey Galello, who has Galello Atelier, which is an amazing brand. And she actually came to me with the Princess Trust as a charity to support women supporting International Women's Day. But they have an amazing program, Women Supporting Women, where they actually empower young girls from all kinds of different backgrounds, underprivileged backgrounds, if you like, and they help put them into job roles. They help educate. They do all sorts. So yeah, I've just started working with them now. And we are going to be taking on somebody to help within the salon. And again, it's just such a small thing for me to be able to do, but it's so nice to be able to work with such an incredible charity.
I love that so much. But tell us about how they've been working with you as well, sending the girls.
Yes, so the girls will come into the salon, and then you were asking kind of like, what does that mean? What, and I was like, well, anybody that's reached out to the Princess Trust firstly is because they want to make a change within their life. So these are people who really want to make a change.
Haven't had privilege necessarily.
Haven't had privilege and they want to learn. This isn't going to be their job forever in the salon, but they just want work experience. So that's what we're able to offer.
I love that. I wish we could do that in dentistry. Imagine.
Maybe you could get nurses, in the reception.
Like nurses and things like that.
You can
but you have to, like, training nurses and all that stuff is, you know.
You could potentially do it as a receptionist.
Really?
Something like that.
Yeah.
What do you reckon if I had like a magic wand and you can for your business in the next sort of 5 years, what would be your sort of dream outcome? What are you looking to do? Are you looking to have more salons or
manifest it here?
Yeah, let's manifest it. When you say it comes true. Actually, having more salons is actually not on my radar because I want to wholesale to salons. So wholesaling out the hair into LA, New York, Dubai, Abu Dhabi would definitely be within the next 5 years. More states for sure in America. Potentially another salon. I'm just going to put it out there. Why not?
If it's a magic one.
Yeah. And then the products that we're bringing out, we're actually in talks with really exciting buyers. So it would be I'm under NDA about the products, but that they would be stocked in these dream stores around the world. One being in America, one being in Australia. And that it's very, very successful. And I'm still loving what I'm doing and we're constantly evolving. That would be really
the dream.
Yeah.
And do you want to tell us any more about Dubai?
Yes. So Dubai, I recently just got back and can you believe we were there that my whole work week was there when the floods were happening.
Oh gosh.
I know. So that was tricky because me and my husband were like, we really need a holiday. So we were going to work. He has an office over in Dubai. Well, his company has an office. So we were going to work the first week. The second week we were on holiday. We got hit with the floods on the first week. So we ended up working our whole holiday the second week. And that's what I mean. Things always happen, right? We're supposed to spend it with the kids. And like every morning I was out by 7:30, missed breakfast most days, didn't see the kids till 3 p.m. on our holiday. But anyway, whatever. So yeah, when I was over there, I was originally supposed to do a pop-up, but you know, I always think things always happen for a reason. I always believe in my gut and I just didn't feel right. I changed things last minute and moved it to September. And actually, it would have been the week of the floods.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So actually, that was amazing. But while I was out there, I had meetings with different salons and it's all just about wholesaling the hair into their salons. So that's all in final negotiation stages now. One of the salons is incredible. They have 30 salons in Dubai and UAE. So that means our hair will be able to be available to them. We're doing a pop-up in Atlantis the Royal in September. So yeah, that's kind of the Dubai.
Amazing.
plan.
And the whole family came out with you?
Whole fam came.
Love it. Take the tribe.
You're never standing still, right? You go Liverpool, London, Virgin, Selfridges, salon. What do you reckon's the driver? How did this come about?
The driver for just not standing still?
Yeah.
Do you just think it's in you? I think, is it just...
Do you hate it when you have to stand still?
I was just about to say, I actually really enjoy a night in on my own and sometimes being in silence, which I couldn't do years ago. When we were talking about that stage when I worked in Selfridges, I could never be on my own. I used to literally have panic attack anxiety. I would really struggle to be on my own, be in my own head. I enjoy time on my own now because I enjoy the quiet. But I am, even if I'm on a night in on my own, I'm always thinking, planning what's next. And I don't know. I think, is it just my personality?
Listen, I'm the same. I started crying on Saturday because I was like in and reading a book. And I said to my partner, I was like, I hate this. And he was like, you need to find joy in things that you don't feel like you're being productive in. Sometimes I can get really stuck into like a Netflix series. You know, like I watched Baby Reindeer and I finished like every episode.
I'm in the middle.
Like I can. And like, I really hate it when people are like, oh, I don't watch television, it's a waste of time. I'm like, no, because actually I learn loads from like documentaries and films and things like that. And I actually think it can be a really nice way to escape as well, you know?
100%, it's a switch off.
Yeah, exactly, to switch off.
But is it some sort of like ADHD trait?
Do you know what? I actually have done like a few online quizzes to see if I have ADHD, because I am sure I do. It's obviously a lot more common than we think, maybe. And also we think of like, I think sometimes when you think of ADHD, you think of the extremes, right?
Yeah.
Whereas most people probably have some aspect of ADHD within them. I don't know, maybe I should go and be diagnosed.
Yeah, but I think ultimately I had a chat with my therapist, and she's just referred me to be checked, because she was like, I just think you do have ADHD, and a lot of my friends do. But it's, you know, they say that on the one hand, it makes people really successful, because I think when I thought of ADHD like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I thought of those really hyper children.
I was going to say,
that couldn't get anything done, like really like climbing up the walls.
I think what Talitha said about this thing being her biggest strength and her biggest weakness.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It helps. It
really
helps you.
Insightful, you know.
Yeah. Personal life, not great. Business, great.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, like that they talk exactly about that you can multitask, get stuff done, etc., but it's in the personal life that it can become more difficult. So it is really interesting.
Is there an aspect of your business that you hate?
E-com.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's challenges and things every day.
I tend to hire a person to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, me too.
I hire people for the things obviously I'm not good at, and that's obviously just a smart way to do things.
So what do you think you're not good at?
I'm really not good at numbers, figures,
Me too.
the boring
Me too.
stuff.
Me too.
Me too. I just can't, because that's not the way our brain works.
Yeah.
Because we have ADHD.
Yeah. Literally. I hate it. I can't do it.
I can't do it. And even like the accounts, it's end of the year now.
And you know, when you look at them, the accounts, you're like sitting there and it's like your head's like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed.
I would literally rather do anything else. I have to speak to my accountant actually when I get out of here, and we're running through a few things, and I'm already like
overwhelmed. Yeah.
I just don't want to. Even the thought of it's just not where I comfortably sit. My husband comfortably sits there.
He deals with my partner.
Exactly.
Finance, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is he in finance?
He's in finance. So I can sometimes send him things and he'll break it down. Like, he really helps with that aspect. But yeah, I absolutely hate those side of things. But of course, it's important. You're running a business. You need to kind of know where the figures are at. Somewhat important, yeah.
But listen, I think at the end of the day, if you are an entrepreneur that sits more in the creative space like you and I do, marketing also is like, you know, the thing that I love. Yeah. You need people on your team you trust, and you need people that can help you make those decisions. And I think it's not about trying to put the pressure on yourself to be 100% amazing at every single aspect.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually just had, well, she's been here a year now. I've got an amazing manager of the salon. Her name's Brooke. She's from Australia. And she's incredible. And actually we were taught, you touched on it before about being lonely when you start the job. And sometimes I feel very like
founder loneliness is a thing.
I feel like I have all these decisions on me. If I don't make a decision, who else is going to make a decision? Yeah. If this doesn't work, it's not on anybody else but me. I've got to pay all these people. But she's actually been a real pillar of strength in me bouncing ideas off. And it's actually been amazing. And I really value her opinion. Mm-hmm. So she's been really good actually for the business, and good for my sanity as well. And sometimes when I go to pull out of things because I'm too overwhelmed, she's like, no, you need to do this because of X, Y, and Z. And she's made me go forward with things, which I'm so glad.
I've got a question for you. Yeah. One of the last questions.
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult to be vulnerable?
I feel like I've been quite vulnerable on this podcast.
Yeah, you have, but do you feel like you find it difficult to be vulnerable at work or at home?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
You stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think
see it as weakness.
Do you see it as weakness, or do you fear like?
Because I feel like you see it as strength.
I see it as strength.
It is strength.
The moment that I will be that person that will break down at work.
Will you?
And I will be that person that will cry and ask for help. And I feel that sometimes I feel judgment, and sometimes I recognize how backward it is, but I also think that we're all human beings, 100%. And shared experience of vulnerability is almost a superpower, and shared experience of vulnerability makes people know and understand that we are human.
Yeah.
Will everyone understand it? No. will everyone break down their walls? No. But I think that the old school notion of, just there's no such thing as depression, there's no such thing as anxiety, just get on with it. Okay, sure. My parents grew up in the Middle East, war-torn countries. I don't think they had time to be depressed, But I think that there is something to be said for these shared experiences.
I think it's amazing that you can do that, for sure. And that's exactly how everybody should be. It's not the way that I am. And sometimes I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. My daughter actually went through a really awful time when she was very young, like 10 weeks old. She was in intensive care unit.
Sorry.
And she's absolutely fine now, perfect health. But it's a very challenging time. And I still, like a week later, was coming to work, facing work. And I was really traumatized, obviously, by the whole experience. And I felt like I was there, but I wasn't present. Like people were talking, but I couldn't take it in. And then I just walk out as like a zombie. And God knows what my team or anyone thought of me at the time. But I never shared with them until later. I find it very hard to talk about. I've never really even talked about this because I find it very hard to talk about very difficult situations whilst they're happening.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
You have to process first.
I have to process.
And you do that usually alone?
Alone.
Yeah. But that's okay. People process things in different ways,
I'm interested in one other thing. Both of you are in the business of cosmetics, right? In the end. And we know as dentists, one of the worst situations is you stick all this stuff on. The person says, love it. Goes home and then someone says something and then they come back.
Come back and my partner doesn't like them.
And then they say, I hate it.
Yeah.
And with us, it's actually quite damaging now to remove all this stuff, let alone costly for everyone. Yeah. But damaging. But you must have had some, and we sometimes call that a body dysmorphia thing, where the person's sort of got a problem and they think fixing the teeth will fix that problem. You must come across...
Really good point, actually. Yeah, I've never looked at it like that.
You must come across that sort of situation with women in hair, right?
Yeah, listen, we work with all,
all sorts of
people. And of course, we've had that happen. And I think I just have to call it at the end of the day. Is it worth the brand damage and what she's going to go around saying about us, saying about the hair extensions, saying about everything, the Google reviews, the da-da-da. Do we just take the hit, take them out, refund, walk away? It's a lesson learned, both sides. That's usually what I'll do. And what we'll really do is to try, and I'm sure you're the exact same, both of you, we'll really try and safeguard that, as in we have a very strict process now, and they have to sign to say they are happy. This is not coming out the head.
Yeah.
Because they are very happy to pay this amount. And now it's very rarely happened since we've put that.
We've actually now implemented a no refund policy. Yeah. I had a very, I'll tell you what happened. I had a girl come in, 6-7 months ago. Her teeth were really in a bad state, really bad, falling apart, bonding. We talked about it, everything, etc. Then she decided to have her. So she was happy to go ahead with the treatment plan, and she was really weird on the day. I was getting a bit of a bad vibe off her, so I made sure to make really copious notes about what she had wanted with her teeth. And halfway through the appointment, she was like, oh, can I have anesthetic? Raise the hand. And I was like, okay, yeah, of course, even though I'd offered her before, she didn't want it. And then when I showed her the mirror, she was like, oh yeah, they look nice. And then she went upstairs. 5 minutes later, my receptionist messaged me saying, X-patient is not happy. So I ran upstairs and I was like, I've got to bring in someone, but it's bonding, you can adjust it, so don't panic. It's not it's an unadjustable thing. She was like, no, I think I need to live with it first. And I said, okay, because I'm numb. I'm like, that's fine, live with it. We can always come back, and you can always come back in 2 weeks or whatever. And then we basically called her 1 million times to try and review her. And then she wasn't coming back, and she'd called Amex to take the refund.
We've had the exact same thing. We've had the exact same thing.
And then we disputed it with Amex. Same. And then she came back. And then eventually my practice manager, my treatment coordinator were like, so I decided to call her bluff. I was like, if she doesn't like it and she wants a refund, I'll remove all the bonding.
100%.
Because if she doesn't like it, I can remove it, because I'm very minimal with my bonding. Yeah. It's not a great big deal, and her teeth underneath weren't horrendous, so I was like, that's fine, I can remove it all if she wants a refund. She refused to come in, and then eventually she's like, oh, I just don't feel comfortable seeing Rhona, I don't feel comfortable. This went on for months, because I was like, I'm so mortified that this has happened. eventually we offered her to see like one of my like best cosmetic dentists. He was like, this is a really good, like I can tweak it a bit, she'll be happy. She agreed. As soon as she walks in, she's like, I'm not having anything removed. That's the first thing she said. Imagine if you hate something so much, aren't you going to be like, get it off? So she spent 5 minutes in the chair and then left, and then still insisted. And by the end of it, I just did what you did. I said, do you know what? Give her the flipping money back. I don't care. But since then, we've now written a refund policy saying no refunds. And if for bonding, and if you want to get a refund, you have to get it removed.
I think, you know, it's interesting with the Amex thing, because we've actually had it twice, and we had it twice over Christmas. And what happens is people spend so much money, they panic that they've then had
it was around Christmas time.
It always happens around Christmas, I swear to you. And it'll be like they've spent all this money, and then whoops, they've got the teeth done, and they've got the hair extensions done. It's over $1,000, couple grand, whatever, and they need the money back, and they go to Amex. And I have disputed every single one with Amex, and I've won them. Because
I think one key thing that you should both be aware of, is that it's not worth ruining the experience for your reasonable patients 100%. And customers, because you're trying to protect from the one that might be trying to get something over on you. So let me give you the example of our B1 guarantee. Yeah, we guarantee results with our product.
B1's the lightest color.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no way of checking. I mean, you know, someone can take 2 pictures at the beginning, send us these 2 pictures, and say it didn't work. You know, cannot check that. Yeah. On occasion, several times, 3-4 times a year, the team say this guy's trying it on. Yeah. I'm happy for this guy to try it on, so that when one of my top customers calls me up and say, hey, Pay, this just didn't work this time. The team will like sort you out. Because
you're right.
You're important as a top customer. Yeah. The fact that someone got one over on me isn't as painful as it should be.
It's true.
You know, and it's difficult because you don't want anyone to get one over you, and our sales team who are actually in touch with the people, they feel it. They're like, this guy thinks he got one over on me or something.
I get you, but I also think like it's important to protect, because you work so hard, and you have to remember like doing treatments like hair extensions and bonnets, so much time, you know, and I get it.
Time and expense.
Time and expense. And you also don't want to develop a reputation where people think they can constantly do one over you as well. You know, I think that's important. Now, we'd have to probably bring you back for part 2 of like business disputes, but we have run out of time. I just want to thank you so much, Talitha, for being so honest, open and vulnerable today. You are honestly such an inspiration. Not only an incredible mother, an incredible businesswoman, and I really appreciate you coming to speak to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so did I. Fox and Vamp, guys, go have a look. It is amazing. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.